Okay, tonight we are honored to have as another second speaker, Professor Karl is a political scientist at the University of Texas at Dallas. He teaches political and economics and public policy in Eastern Asia. His research focuses on East Asian and Chinese-Taiwan-U.S. relationship. He is the organizer of the UTD Taiwan Democracy Symposium, and he was awarded the Taiwan Fellow in 2018 and studied Taiwan New Southbound Policy. He is originally from Hong Kong, started off as a journalist major and professor of journalism after graduation. He's traveled in China extensively, covering stories during the country's embarkment of economic reforms. He has been a native in Taiwan elections and democratic research and comparative analysis of politicalism in Taiwan and the U.S. Let's welcome Dr. Ho.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much. Actually, the honors are mine. Thank you for hosting my talk and allowing me to share my research. Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. Don't worry about it. Okay, don't worry. Okay, good. Good. Here. All right. This is really a great honor for me to share my findings for research about Hong Kong, Taiwan, China, and particularly U.S. I'm an American citizen, and I came from Hong Kong in 1990, and that was back then as a British Hong Kong. So I was brought up in British education, and then I was trained as a journalist, and I have a chance to become a professional journalist for a paper called Hong Kong Standard, and I wrote for this paper and covering the legislative issues, and then I also traveled to China. I love traveling to different places in China, seeing many different Chinese people, and then one thing that changed my mind when I see the reality of the open reform in 1987, and then that is the time that I decided I think I should move on to get more education myself, and so I made a decision to come to the U.S. to study political science. And on one trip that I traveled to China for 40 days, and I backpacked and went to the remote areas, went to Beijing, went to Chengdu, and went to places maybe I have not heard of to you, and but I met with the people there. I love the people there, until I believe that China's reform is coming to an impasse, and because they cannot accept the political reform. Then I saw in my bare eyes and how the protesters, a lot of them students, were greeted with violence, rejection, and eventually their wishful thinking got dashed by the really brutal, bloody crackdown in Beijing. So all over these years, I think I was in a really privileged and position because I was in China. My parents were from China. I was brought up in Hong Kong, British Hong Kong. Then I came to US for education. I owe everything to this nation because if it's not for education, I would not be like today's me. Then I get to teach a subject I really love, and that I have a dream to drive my research, my effort in teaching Chinese politics, teaching Taiwan and Hong Kong democratization, because I really want the people in these places can enjoy what we are experiencing here. I am so compelled to change the topic and use these strong words for this talk, and I believe that this is the moment that we need to face the reality. We are in a clear and present danger, and particularly when you look at Hong Kong, Taiwan, and in the topic of US national security. Quickly, I will talk about what I want to organize this talk about, and so why Taiwan, Hong Kong matter to US national security. Then I want to talk about what is at stake. I am looking at this from my American scholar point of view. So you may see me as a Chinese descendant and see me as a Hong Konger, but I wrote this because I'm an American researcher. Then I want to talk about, for my fellow Americans, what is at stake. Then I will talk about clear danger that is happening in Hong Kong and what is the present danger to Taiwan. Then I want to talk about the US policies, current policies that can put our national security at risk. And 3 A's: ambiguity, agenda setting power, and appeasement. Then I will talk about different scenarios. All right, now, I think I will skip this slide and go directly to some clip. And I don't know whether this will have sound, but I want to give you an image, quite vivid, because today, April 14 is named National Security Day in Hong Kong. I don't know how coincidental it is, but this is sadly coincidental to the Hong Kong students. And let me see if I can show you some footage, and may not be the sound, just don't worry, they do not have the video available, but I want to show you some pictures. So this is a picture that the children, the school children, were forced to stand in front of the Chinese flag, and then they have to march the Chinese ways now. And in the past, Hong Kong used the British marching style, and you can tell they're basically from the traditional British style, and paying tribute to the Union Jack, and sort of respect to the Queen. And now you can see from the picture, they have to march the Soviet manner. The Soviet manner and the Chinese manner. And this may be new image to you because it disappeared for decades. And in Hong Kong, in the Western world now, a freer city in the world that have to adapt to this style. And that really reminded me of something happened like in the 1930s, 1940s. How these policemen have to march the Soviet way, the older German way, that's actually. Now, and so look at these children, and I don't know how much a celebrating mode they have. Are they really excited, exhilarated, or seeing their or starting this first National Security Day because of the imposition of this national security law in Hong Kong. And I saw this little guy with the glasses on, whether he's meditating or he's really thinking about his future. And I have strong feelings about his children. And now, side note, in Hong Kong identity, and the red line is to show how much Hong Kong people will identify themselves as Chinese. So you can see the early days, and this is, I should have printed up in a bigger font. 1997 is still a rise, and then come up and down, and still a constant rise until 2008. 2008, still see the peak here. There, this is the peak when the Hong Kong people really celebrate their Chinese identity. And you remember what happened in 2008, there was Olympic Games. So the Hong Kong people were really up-spirited, and they were at home watching the game and seeing medals and a building, a number, and now from that point onward, and less Hong Kong people call themselves Chinese. And you can see the yellow line here is the Hong Kong identity going up. So I can see this little young children made to salute to the Chinese flag. He had to call himself a Chinese openly. Maybe until he can meet his friends in private, whether he call himself a Hong Konger. Okay, now this is Hong Kong, this is Chinese identity. Now, maybe I should talk about U.S. What is at stake to us? What is our national interest in Hong Kong? Why it matters to us? Number one, 7 million population, and among them, 85,000 Americans. So it could have most Americans, one of the areas that has most Americans in that Asia-Pacific area, except our military bases. And in Taiwan, it should be about 10,000. In Japan, I don't know, but it will not be about this number. 85,000 Americans in Hong Kong. And 1,300 firms, American firms. And it is the single largest U.S. trading partner for trade service. So we really get a lot to export to Hong Kong. And most importantly, this is the entry port for U.S. firm to ship things to China. They stop by Hong Kong. The important thing is Hong Kong is still protected by a few things that is at the heart of the U.S. interest. Number one, it has a currency system that is intimately tied to the American dollars. And it is called the peg system. And it's one of the few countries, or first countries, to peg its own currency to US dollars. That means it's not a fixed rate, but close to a fixed rate, 61.8 Hong Kong dollars. And there are rules for floating, but that is basically tied to US dollars. And some numbers you may not have read in the US media. Hong Kong is one of the countries or places holding highest foreign currencies in US dollars. The number one is China, 3 trillion, about 3 trillion, 1.4 trillion. Number two is Japan, but a small place called Hong Kong holding this place on number 7. But if you look at the foreign reserve by people per capita, it's the highest in the world. And you can have 1 trillion in Hong Kong. And looking at more data, and Hong Kong government is counting on US dollars to really fund its operation, about 200 billions. And Hong Kong people trust US dollars. And I think the count savings could be triple this number. And with the foundations Hong Kong government has, and also the Hong Kong people saving, Now more and more Hong Kong people are moving their assets or properties to US dollars now through some banks in Hong Kong, and because they're not in full trust in Hong Kong dollars anymore, and not to mention the Chinese currency called renminbi. Now, the stock market capitalization is huge. It's so big that I was shocked. It's at 6 trillion. 6 trillion, and it could fund U.S. expenditure for almost half a year, and then pay for all expenses for American government for 6 months. And so why it is important to us? And because it's one of the important trading partner and with the safest window to trade with China. I don't know anyone is investing in China, but how much you can put in will not be equivalent to how much you can take out. So China will have some capital control, and if you do that in Hong Kong, that is different. Then you can get money out anytime, put in the money anytime. It's the safest window to trade China because of 3 things. Number one, it is basically, I said basically, using the British legal system. And number 2, it is a bilingual society. You cannot find more people who can speak American English or English, British English, than Hong Kong in any Asian societies. And Japan, not much. Taiwan, some. And Singapore, maybe. Singapore, I think is comparable, but they have a smaller population. South Korea, not close. So that is the really bilingual society, only bilingual society that is best assets for American investors. But also there's one thing called the laissez-faire system, and Hong Kong is the freest city, not one of them, the freest city until 2019. In 2020, it was demoted to number 2 and surpassed by Singapore. But unfortunately, in 2021, according to the Heritage Foundation, Hong Kong is not even in the rank. Hong Kong is totally removed from the whole list because according to Heritage Foundation, this is very clear. It can only include countries exercising full sovereign control over their economic policies. Hong Kong has demonstrated so well how much an authoritarian country can supersede a free economy. So we let that happen, unfortunately. Then U.S. national interest is diminishing. Now there's one story that can really tell the story impressively. U.S. government sold consulate properties in Hong Kong. Our government bought in about 1940s and 50s at about 33 million. Then we sold it at 330 million in February. So actually, those properties has been risen, increased from 33 million to how much? 3.5 billion US dollars. So 3.3 billion for a few buildings. This is really unbelievable. That is really the case. But US still has to sell it at 5% of the estimated market price. Because US consulate back last year believed that if they do not sell it, this will become worthless. So the Chinese government block such a sale and don't let the market work for American sellers, and then because it become a really hostage issue until later in February, and allow American government to sell it at only 330 million. So one of the latest surveys by American Chamber of Commerce in Hong Kong found that the 1,300 firms, these business leaders, investors, they are almost overwhelmingly pessimistic about Hong Kong. So they don't think Hong Kong has a future. And Hong Kong is really on the decline, decay, but that is not something really remote to us. If Hong Kong loses its current international position, this is what is happening to us. US has to find an alternative to trade with China if it still wants to trade China. Will you choose Shanghai, Taipei, or Singapore? None of them could be really a good candidate to replace Hong Kong. None. And not even close. Singapore is also in a very difficult situation dealing with China. And Taipei cannot do it, Japan cannot do it, unless you want to do it in Shanghai or Shenzhen. And China will leverage Hong Kong's separate special status, affecting US dollars. So indeed, this is something China is doing now. Don't forget, China has two currencies. One is its own renminbi, the other one is Hong Kong dollar, which is basically pegged to US dollars. So what it can do is to sell properties or assets to products and get Hong Kong dollars, American dollars, but you can buy it in renminbi. So that presents a really big hole for US investors or international investors. Imagine that. That hole could be as big as 6 trillion US dollars. This is nothing like some changes, like a few millions. This is really a big hole unless we really pay attention to it. This 6 trillion is not stopping there. It could be more. That today 6 trillion, tomorrow will be 8 trillions if more and more people go into the Hong Kong stock market. And it will be a blow to American interest and most importantly, the value of believing. Why? Since President Wilson introduced his principle of self-determination after the First World War, Hong Kong is the only place, this is the only population never given the right to talk about their destiny. So that is totally against what we promised to the world. And every country benefit from Woodrow Wilson's principle of self-determination, but only Hong Kong people was left behind. Democracy, market economy, freedom, individualism, and American values, American culture, and anything that we as Hong Kongers truly believe in, truly look up to, will be gone. So that would be a big blow to American interest. That could be the biggest blow to American interest since Pearl Harbor. Now, I think I have some more about Taiwan, and I don't have much time left, but I want to quickly talk about why U.S. national interest in Taiwan is also at high stake. 23 million population, and you may see that we do not have many Americans in Taiwan or Taipei, these big cities, but Americans can go to this place totally free for 90 days, come and go, stay there as long as you want to. But if Taiwan is gone and Americans cannot put a step on this Taiwan soil that easy. It is the sixth highest foreign reserve for the whole world, and just one step higher than Taiwan, and about 340 billions. And it is a sizable GDP, 1.3 trillion, about 116, maybe even more than most of the states here, maybe only a few states. And 10th largest US trading partner, and supporting more than 200,000 jobs, and this number is going up. And leaders on one important thing is Taiwan holds the key to the high-end semiconductor markets. So that means your phone, the next generation of phones, and chances are the chips are made in Taiwan. Now, fortunately and unfortunately, this technology is the holy grail for all the countries who want to control the world. That semiconductor technology is enabling us Americans to lead the world in technologies like mobile phones, AI, supercomputers, and medical devices, everything that needs to be driven by the semiconductors. Now imagine these manufacturing plants will be taken over by Chinese. So that means we will be begging a communist party to give us the chips in order that we can use our phone. This is not an easy to forget matter. Now, one more thing is about U.S. troops in Asia. And we have about 131,000, mostly in Japan, South Korea, and Singapore, a small portion in Singapore. Now, this is a map that we must pay attention to, or maybe I hope you will see the picture here. And usually I show it to my students, and we look into every country when we can. Now, this is a very important part for US and China relations. If Taiwan and Hong Kong, or Hong Kong alone taken over by People's Liberation Army, PLA, so what they can do is target only one place, which is called Taiwan. Now, if they take Taiwan, Okinawa cannot do much to really secure the area. That will open our window directly to Guam. That is our territory. That is our front door to Asia. That is our people there, our children there, soldiers there. So I'm not exaggerating. Things are happening really fast now, and I will give you some pictures. So Biden's policy on China, and this is something that I want to bring to your concern, bring to your attention. Number one, and Biden reiterated official relations with China, and Biden did do some, make some speeches, make some reactions, but rare compared to the previous administration. When you bring up Hong Kong to the president, he probably be quiet. Chances are he will be going away, walking away. Now, this is what he did to China, and he's sending John Kerry, an official cabinet member, to China next week. And they met with the Chinese officials in Alaska in last month. And Biden made a phone call to see. This is what he did so far. So he is sending Christopher Dodd to Taiwan and Taipei, but it's an official delegation, not much to say. Bear in mind that Dr. Chen mentioned about Hollywood. He's the big guy in Hollywood. In case you do not know, he is one of the key leaders of the businesses in Hollywood, and it's more like a symbolism than doing anything natural. When you talk about Hong Kong, and we bring up Hong Kong to Blinken or Biden, chances are they will say we do not endorse this, we are really mad, we are very sad, and boom, 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 nothing, no action. So Biden reiterated strategic competition. He only said it's competition only, extreme competition, but not confrontation. But to our previous president, and his bottom line is clear. Let's make it very clear. China is the biggest adversary, no question about it. But Biden has been really ambiguous about this, and he's not really facing this issue. For Taiwan, Blinken just said, U.S. a series of commitment to Taiwan being able to defend itself. In other words, when they come, when the PLA comes, and you defend yourself, we will be there, maybe helping you by saying a few words. Head in there, head in there. That is something really imminent. Now for China, let me give you some updates in case the US media did not give you. And for China believed in Biden because Biden would be a brave of it. Indeed, this has been showing that lots of words, lots of talks, lots of negotiations, but actions, I don't see much actions. Global Times in China endorsed semi-official media, said there's an opportunity to break through, rebuilding trust and cooperation, talk, dialogue, and mutually beneficial to each other. The personal advisor to Xi Jinping, the president, suggests that relations may still be worse, but still not as quickly. And containment of China could be expected, but that's it. And there will be more sanctions on Hong Kong. Xinjiang officials unlikely. And then look at the tech companies. And maybe Rafi can know better than I do. What is Huawei now? And now in Canada, Huawei saying that this CFO could be free soon. Huawei ban could be lifted soon, and more TikTok and WeChat sanctions. Now I know the time is running out, but I will do something quite, what is called clear denture. There will be over 200,000 people are thinking or moving already to other places, UK and Canada. And Hong Kong is losing more friends, losing the financial center, losing the FDIs especially. Look, now the dissidents, or the formerly called pan-democrats, or the opposition leaders, they are disenfranchised, they cannot run, they cannot be nominated, they cannot vote because they are in jail. Now under national security law, more and more running out, more and more arrested, more and more disappearance, more and more people falling from the high rises, more floating bodies in the seaside, thousands arrested or imprisoned, and more opposition leaders will be in jail, and rest they are banned from departure. I'm sorry about the part. And some appeals passed mostly from the Trump administration, and but I want to say a few things about Taiwan. And Taiwan is facing PLA Air Force threat every day. I think you may not know that. The fighter jets are flying over Taiwan every day, not every month. Now, this is really underreported in the US. Now, this is the technologies are there. Now, they use our weapons. What if they are fallen? That means our weapon, our technology will fall in the hands of these competitors, quote unquote. Now, I showed you the really important geopolitical position of Taiwan. And now, PLA just a few days ago fly a formation of 25 warplanes, fighter jets, into the air defense zone in Taiwan. So that means they're picking a fight. They're picking a fight maybe while I'm talking now. So PLA's response, get used to it. This is literal translation of the PLA response. They want to take over the US air control in that area, the Taiwan air traffic zone. That means they can take over Taiwan in time. This is their planes, and I have some more pictures to show. Now this is one more picture to show. So this is the actual data. This is the actual encounter of face-to-face with two US and China PLA vessels. They are that close, maybe just 100 meters close. And the Chinese fighter pilot said, Taiwan, all ours. This is nothing more than picking a fight here. Now, let me wrap up. There are three things we must avoid. This is all the ambiguity. If we slow to respond, China leader will take lead and take for granted US will not act. If US is not clear and without action, China will push the envelope. The triangular equilibrium, China, US, and Taiwan, those days are gone because Hong Kong is gone. Taiwan is much more important. Taiwan will not accept the Chinese proposal one country system. And the balance power is structurally different. Now, and number two, as Senator said, we are basically accepting what China proposes. Let's not talk about Xinjiang, let's not talk about Taiwan, let's talk about Hong Kong, just talk about climate change. They will send John Terry there. So Xi and his followers are using this to convince the Chinese population China is in control now. And Alaska meeting is to Chinese. This meeting is to show the Chinese population now Chinese leaders can take a position to tower over the U.S. diplomats and give them a lecture. This is exactly what happened. Why this is why there's a national celebration in China. National. They even printed on the T-shirts. Now, number 3, appeasement. If U.S., Americans, every one of us turns a blind eye to Hong Kong and Taiwan, it says the president. This president is totally historic and allow a free city built on Western values and Washington consensus to success that will come to a fall. Now, there are 2 very important history lessons I want to remind everyone, every soul in this room. Imagine, U.S. gave up Berlin. Let Soviet Union take over Berlin. There won't be a West Germany, it won't be a Germany now. It won't be the fall of the Iron Curtain. Number 2, Chamberlain and Daladier let go of Czechoslovakia. What happened? What happened for that so-called Munich Agreement? This is what we are stepping into, this Munich Agreement, to allow someone take over Hong Kong, someone take over Taiwan, then we are coming to say, let's talk about climate change. Concluding, U.S. is dangerously close to repeating history in the face of unchecked pressure, and Dr. Chen gave so much evidence already, I don't have to repeat that. Losing Hong Kong will not be inconsequential, will not be nothing happening to us. It will come to us really with grave results. Losing Taiwan will be like another Pearl Harbor. That no one can disagree that, because this is so important. We cannot lose the beacon of democracy and freedom in Asia, and we cannot lose the semiconductor industry. And Asia-Pacific situation